Most yachties would dream of competing in the Hobart. Experienced sailors might believe that one day they could win it. Only 7 boats have won Lion Honours back-to-back. Despite a fairy tale finish in 2023, LawConnect was once again considered the underdog in 2024, with most pundits expecting Comanche to claim its 5th Lion Honours victory. What happened next was completely unprecedented.
LawConnect is over the line.
These big fellas, especially LawConnect and Master Lock Comanche, are really going to be setting a breathtaking pace.
Blast off. Full speed ahead in the 79th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race.
As she's tacked on the port tack lay line now, Master Lock Comanche will go with her. There's the first turning mark. She's got the first job done.
Bragging rights for LawConnect.
The 79th Rolex Sydney Hobart turned out to be a race defined by tragedy and perseverance. Perfect conditions for the race start in Sydney Harbour soon turned into more challenging circumstances as 104 boats made their way towards Hobart. Only 74 of those boats would finish the race, with 30 being forced to retire, including the Lion Honours favourite.
Normally I'll address the crew and I'll talk them through the race and have specific things about the whole race, but on this occasion, the only thing I talked about was the hours between 8 and 2 a.m. and how we're going to do the jibe, because I realised that's going to be, if we can do that, we're going to have a chance.
We're having, I think, pretty lengthy discussions for at least a week out from, because the forecast was, I think, relatively locked in. You know, we've been talking about manoeuvres, sail changes, quite a lot of kind of discussion, because you knew you wouldn't want to be dealing with it at that time.
There's always something that goes wrong, or that hasn't worked, or something fails. So plenty of times we've gone to the start line and a component hasn't worked, or some electronics have failed, or whatever. You've just got to be able to have your workaround. This year I think we had a e-stop button that you can hit to stop all the winches in case something was to go wrong, and it shorted out and all the winches didn't work. So it was like, get the pliers out, cut the wire, let's keep racing.
It's nice to lead out the heads. You know, Christian loves it. You can always hear that voice in the back of your head. It sounds a lot like Christian going, it's really important to lead out the heads. We also want to win the race, so in order to get to Hobart, we've got to get out of it in one piece.
As the breeze strengthens, tactics and sail handling must change to adapt to those conditions. It requires a top-class crew to keep the boat safe and performing at its peak.
There's lots of different weather models, and they don't normally match up until two days out, but all the models were saying the same thing a week out, so it's a definite this is going to happen. And we could see that it was going to be pretty difficult, strong winds down the east coast, and which is going to give like all the boats a major headache on how they're going to handle themselves in that weather, and especially on a 100-footer. We have to do quite a few jibes in those high wind speeds and 40 knots. That's where we had to catch back up to Comanche. That was the plan, and so by 2 a.m. I wanted to be side by side or within a mile of them, because once we started going through the front, all boats become the same speed, and then it's like who wants to push it the most.
We've got quite a reasonable strategy already in place based off weather forecasts, and also based off where we're strong and weak as well. Sometimes you may want to set up on an east-west side of another boat, just because of our strengths, what the next sail change would be, the next shift, the next seaway, current, everything's taken into account. We were doing a lot of model runs before it, and my thoughts weren't in line with what the computer was saying. They need to line up, because it's no good if If I believe we should be doing something different because of sea state and the computer's saying, no, we should go this path.
I think all the changes we made were at the right time and before it got too out of control. But yeah, it was definitely starting to get pretty wild.
The race before was pretty tough as well, but this one, certainly I found it more stressful. Yeah, especially the first part. The worry about the guys and making sure they're all wearing the life jackets and all clipped on, and especially when the bow guys have to go up and remove the sail.
Even the best of crews make mistakes, as evidenced just after the start of the 2024 race, when the unfurling of the giant reaching sail certainly did not go as planned.
It was what I'd call a totally rookie mistake. The boats are our boats set up with a furling. Pretty much everything's on a furler, and it moves. It operates either what we call port active or starboard active, which is the side the line comes out of the furler. And our boat is starboard active for all sails, and somehow the boys set that sail up as port active. So on the deploy, it's unwinding the bottom the wrong way, so we create an hourglass, if you like, and then the cable gets confused and the sail keeps confused, and it was our total crew screw up, if you like, and totally on us. Yeah, it was, and I was getting quite frustrated. I actually left the wheel and walked up, and all the way to the front, and I looked at it and went, "Boys, that's port active. It's meant to be starboard active," and they're like,
We had a really rugged morning prep. We had a few breakages. We had things going wrong, like for me, very wrong, before the start of the race in that morning. And that's normally like, if you can arrest that and stop that, you're a good team. And I was just going
Stressed.
Yeah. Normally you want your morning prep to be like clockwork and going well, and ours was far from it. One of the best things about that race was we were able to turn around that morning and lead out of the heads, but then you saw us have an issue at the heads. So there was a few, the stuff that we wouldn't normally do, and we were able to shake this off somehow during the day and the next night.
Jibing a yacht is difficult at the best of times, but in 40 knots it requires absolute precision from the crew, especially on a super maxi.
If you listen to Tony mutter about how he goes through his jibing in 40 knots, it's very interesting, and he makes it sound like he thinks it's easy, but trust me, I would never want to try it myself. Like, it's actually horrendously difficult. Where it becomes a problem on these big boats is you cannot get enough power to all the winches at once. So it kept me awake at night for a week thinking about it. And I told them how I wanted them to do it, and they executed it perfectly.
So without giving too much away, talk us through the sequence. I mean, you've got runners, you've got sheets, and
Yeah.
sheet, the whole thing.
So it was basically, we were going to separate the winches, one winch after the other. So no two winches were going to be going at the same time. So there's no chance of a lockout where they both stop. So I said to them, okay, so first plan is we tack down on the Jenica, and then when you've done that, that's to Dylan, and Dylan turns around and looks at Rodney. Rodney then does the pre-tension on the furl, turns around, looks at me, and then I'm just telling the guys, okay, we're set, ready for the jibe, and we preset the traveller a metre up from the leeward side, because traditionally everyone will preset the traveller in the middle, but if you set it up only a metre from the leeward side, all of a sudden you've got 6 metres less main sheet to pull on, which means your winches is only operating for a very short period of time, and then that traveller is held by Sinbad, and he was holding on to that, and he's ready to release it when we come out on the new jibe. So when I tell the guys we're going to jibe, at this point, Brad is on the main. Like I'm not looking ahead. I'm looking for a wave. I'm looking for an off ramp to leeward under the main, and when I see a big long opening, and we're doing 25 knots, I'll turn into it and we go into the jibe. Brad brings the main on, Ty's on the leeward runner, Ryan's on the weather runner, and so the sequence goes tack winch, furling winch, main winch, runner. After we've jibed, we've come out dead downwind, the main's on, the runner's on, then we furl the Jenica. So we don't furl it till we're halfway through the jibe. So then you still come out of the jibe at 25 knots and you're still furling the Jenica. The jib's blowing across, 2 guys on the sheets for that. Main's perfect because you've got all the winches, the runners and everything's all set up, and then you can deploy. You can either deploy straight away or you can have a breather if sort something out, if there's a problem.
Did you have a reef in the mainsail?
Yes, 2 reefs.
2 reefs.
Yeah, so that takes a lot of load off the main sheet as well. Yeah, so even in that situation, if we'd been straight lining with 1 reef, I would have put 1 reef, the second reef in to do the manoeuvre.
And the keel, where's the keel while this is all happening?
Yeah, I push centre. Yeah, we have port and starboard button, and then there's another button in the middle which is centre, but I don't push that until I start turning the wheel. So it's pretty late, but the boat, if you're surfing, it's going from 45 to centre, and then as soon as we're around and everyone's happy and I can see, as soon as the furl starts to come out, then I push the button and bring it out to the new side.
Whatever wave Tone picks and his timing, he commits, and then everyone follows. Pretty much any one person who drops the ball on that, it can end up
catastrophic.
Yeah.
Are you talking to Tony to try and get that wave, or is he you're leaving that to him?
Like most of the time we see all the same things.
Yeah.
Like when we're jibing in the dark like that, I'll just say, good one forming, and then it's, it has to be his call, his timing, and then we go, and you just sitting there knowing everyone's ready, the boat's going to go through at speed, because that's the
key to it.
The safest.
We didn't have not one winch slowed down. It worked very good. So we did it 5 times, and each one was windier, and to the point where we finally, the first 2 jibes, we jibed from port to starboard, and we had Comanche 9 miles in front of us. And then we did 2 jibes and came back at them, and the next minute they were only 5 miles in front. Then we did it again, and then I could see Comanche stern light. They're only 2 miles away.
And how fresh was it?
That was fresh. That was 40 to 45. Yeah, a lot of water. And then in the end, we could see their stern light, and we said, we're close enough. Let's get it off. So we furled up the A7. I could actually see their green light. Under the main, I had a quick glimpse. I could see it. They were a beam of us, just a bit further south. And then next minute, I could see the green out the back of the main. And I said to Louis, I said, "Mate, what's going on? What's going on with Comanche?" And he goes, "Oh, 2 knots. They're doing 2 knots." I'm like, oh dear. So then we radioed them, checked that they were okay, because we thought they might have had an issue or a man overboard or something like that. And they came back and said they were all okay, and they didn't tell us what was going on.
Regrettably, on the first night, Line Honour's favourite Masterlock Comanche, reporting mainsail damage, was forced to withdraw 63 nautical miles off New South Wales Green Cape.
The retirement of Line Honour's favourite Comanche on the first rugged night of the 2024 race came as a shock to competing crews and fans alike. The question has to be asked, if Comanche had not retired, could LawConnect still have been first to finish?
It would have been interesting if they had would have been a super cool, would have been scary. But yeah, if they'd stayed in one piece, it would have been like we were taking some nice chunks out of them at that stage just before they broke, and it would have been pretty interesting. Like it was already a war of attrition, regardless, but that would have continued into rougher seas.
We knew that Comanche was going to get well ahead initially because it was quite windy, and they always do well in that conditions. But what we felt is we had a chance when it got heavier, mostly because we had a sail called an A7, which is a kind of a smaller spinnaker for downwind, heavy downwind. They didn't have that kind of sail. They were, I think, on a jib or something like that. And so we perceived we had a bit of advantage there, but also what I think Tony and the team did was to push it very hard. Like if you've got those 40 knot winds and you're running a spinnaker at all, that's pushing it hard.
The idea was to be side by side when the front hit, when the westerly came, and then It's like who wants to push it the most. And I would have said that even though they are potentially a lot quicker across the Bass Strait, you can't use that speed because all the boats become the same in that kind of sea state. So I was hoping to get under the lee of Tasmania and be side by side again. So, and then it went light. We go okay in the light. So, you know, who knows?
Obviously, Comanche's been front and centre with us now for several years. You know, the one issue with them for us is that they're faster than us, and they can turn in a circle quicker than we can.
You say they're faster, people may think, well, how's that work? But they're only slightly faster, aren't they? It's not a huge faster, it's just a fraction.
Exactly. But in, you know, it's like a running race. If the next person's slightly faster than you,
it's got to get there first.
Yeah,
most
exactly.
Of the time,
bit of a handful. But the tactics have had to change, I think, considerably. And a bit of that's been like Comanche's had different crews each of the times that we've come up against them.
Once her main opposition retired, it was a case of managing the yacht to ensure she finished in one piece by taking the foot off the accelerator somewhat.
It's all about risk management. Like when they were in the race, the risk was they'd beat us, so we were happy to risk sails and things like that to catch them. But once they were out, it did give us the opportunity to actually de-risk.
As soon as they kind of pulled out, it was just sort of get the boat there in one piece, and you know, still, you know, a big challenge to get there, especially through Bass Strait and in that sort of westerly front that came through. So no, it was a different feeling, but again, still it was more just about finishing the race more than anything.
If they stayed in one piece, we would have pushed harder. There would have been some damage. Like, you know, the part about that seaway in those conditions is like, I think you're reasonably close to catastrophic damage. You know, the minor damage sails, we're able to look after them, fill them up, look after them as such. But the actual catastrophic damage, like hull failure, rig failure, is a much harder beast to look after.
And on a 100-footer, it's quite hard. Like we had, you can imagine, we're heading south, pretty much bang on course. We still had the old northeasterly swell rolling through from behind. The wind direction, we were 60 to 70 true. So it's quite tight. And with the smallest jib, 2 reefs in the main, and we'd hook the wave from behind and we'd be doing 25 knots. Couldn't slow it down. So you go ripping down the wave, and then you hit one of the westerly ones on the top of the back of a northeasterly one, so it's extra high, and we've got problems. We're going to break the boat. So then it was, okay, how are we going to solve this? So we actually just went under main alone for about 4 hours.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, is it, to slow the boat down? People think,
No.
why would you want to slow down? You want to go as quick as you can, but it's dangerous if you don't.
Yeah, well, it's just the structure, you know. You imagine the boat's 100 feet long, and if you go over one of those waves, you're only going to have your back 4 metres of hull in the water, and the rest is 35 tonnes
Airborne.
people airborne, and that's going to slam down. It's like dropping it off a 2-storey building. The structure's not designed for that.
In 2024, Christian once again brought a group of employees along for the race, and as novices, much care had to be taken to ensure their safety in the tough conditions that prevailed early in the race.
We had to spend most of the time below deck because most of the time the conditions were rough, so it's probably one of the less enjoyable times to be on the boat. But generally speaking, you get a range, but most of them really like it, and many of them said it's the best thing they've done in their lives and things like that. But it's not just the race, it's leading up to it and afterwards, and we love hanging out with the pro sailors and things like that.
We knew going into it that it was going to be a really rough race, and you know, the crew were very conscious of our safety. Then they said, if you feel like you're not going to be able to feel comfortable on board, you don't have to go ahead with it. But I think I was really up for the challenge. I think in the lead up to the Sydney to Hobart, we do a lot of training with the crew and some test races, and I just loved being part of it. But I felt like I've gone this far, I couldn't not do the race.
Not having done the race before, you don't know what's good and what's bad. You might just think, well, this is normal, perhaps.
Well, I think I knew it wasn't quite normal when I was downstairs and the boat is absolutely slamming against waves and I see a few of the sailors poke their heads out of their bunks, and I was like, okay, they seem a little bit worried, still very calm, everyone's very calm, but you can tell there was a little bit of like, okay, yeah, this is maybe not normal conditions.
How did it play out for you down below?
Just before I went downstairs, you could feel the wind pick up and there was just so much water already. So when we went downstairs, we kind of hopped into a bunk, and we always reserved the high side bunks for the sailors. So we were sleeping on the low side, which also felt a bit terrifying. I think you can kind of feel everything, and the water's feels right there. It's a bit like you're kind of sleeping in a wave. I think I was downstairs for about 20 hours. So I went down at 9 p.m. and I didn't go up till 4 p.m. the next day, and that was when it was calm. So it really was quite relentless for that entire time.
So head of global marketing, what does that entail?
LawConnect is a really incredible product that allows, gives consumers legal information when they need it, and also can connect them to lawyers. I think there's a really big kind of access to justice problem, and LawConnect just helps facilitate that kind of information you need when you're maybe in a time of crisis, or a lot of people wouldn't know where to go to get legal help. So you can just go to LawConnect, you can ask it any question, and it'll give you a really good AI answer. It's been really cool to see the evolution of, I guess, the interest in both sailing and the product as well. And we bring the public a view of sailing that people have never seen before. And we kind of had, record views on our live stream this year.
There's 22 of us on the boat. There's only 2 maxis this year. So you've got 44 people that only get to see what it's like to be on a 100-foot sailing boat. So we're trying to give back to the public so they get the feeling of the speeds that we're doing, what it's like to have water coming over the deck. And it's been working well, and we've progressed that over the last few years.
Much like in 2023, Christian took a do-nothing approach when it came to his involvement whilst on board. He describes himself as a sailing bullshitter.
Look, firstly, I'd say no one ever wants to be a sailing bullshitter, and I certainly didn't either. But what happened was I bought the boat, and when I first bought the boat, I thought, I'm going to be a sailor, I'm going to learn how to do this. I did all the training with the crew, and I was really involved. But over time, I learned that the less I do, the better it goes. I think in the past years, I had a bit of imposter syndrome because people thought I was doing a lot more than I did. So I thought the best thing to do is tell everyone they actually do nothing, because it's true. And now I feel okay about it.
The 2 line honours victories were very different. One grabbing the lead right at the end of the race, and the other virtually assured in the first 12 hours, as long as they could get to the finishing line.
Look, it was a very different feeling, hugely different. Like, I think, as you say, right to the end in 23, I didn't think we were going to win. And then when we won, it was an amazing shock. And I remember thinking, shit, I'm going to have to make a speech here. What am I going to say?
Well, you made a famous speech.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. But I think 23, when we beat them at the end, is probably better than beating them through what happened in 24.
If you look at Oates back, they've won so many races, and they must have had this kind of thing rolling on at certain times in the past where where they've got good crew, they're in good form.
Having a lot of experience together, going into those situations makes it a bit easier.
This year we had 1 crew change. So I guess myself, and now with Christian's been there for a long time, Tony has, and all the crew. So we've got a lot of continuity amongst the whole team now.
She'd been racing 1 day, 13 hours and 27 minutes.
LawConnect is going to join some famous names, the schooner Astor, Bumblebee 4 and Ragamuffin, as a 3-time line honours winner. LawConnect is over the line in the Rolex Sydney Hobart for 2024, and there's a good crowd that's turned out in Hobart. LawConnect has done it, back to back.
There's an old saying that goes, to finish first, first you must finish. You could certainly say that rang true for LawConnect in the 2024 Rolex Sydney Hobart race. From a furling problem at the start of the race to relentless conditions, LawConnect had to fight through adversity in the pursuit of victory. In many ways, the 2024 race win mirrors the boat's journey through its many chapters. A boat with 6 lives that defied all the odds. Through many name changes, a rebuild, challenging weather and some rookie errors, the key to LawConnect was always a crew that never gave up. LawConnect's greatest success came when most believed it would fail, and regardless of the vessel that carried them to victory, it's the crew on LawConnect that decide its fate.